Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on sustainability governance, how to strengthen the SDGs at local level. This webinar is organized by the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. My name is Katharina Krell. I'm a thematic expert of the Policy Learning Platform, and I'll moderate this event. I'm here with my two colleagues, Lotte, who manages the technical aspects, and Astrid, who will monitor the activities in the chat. The webinar is being recorded. All presentations and the recordings will be shared with you automatically after the event, as well as a summary of the key learnings, so you don't have to do anything to get these. We have quite a large audience today. I see you are still joining, so welcome, welcome, and welcome again. We are having over 300 people registered, so a lot of interest in this topic of sustainability governance. And from the registration list, we can see that you mostly come from public bodies at regional and local levels. You can interact as audience with our speakers through the chat, so don't hesitate to make use of that. My colleague Astrid will monitor whatever you post there. Before we go into the presentations, we'd like to ask you, the participants, two quick questions through a poll. So, first of all, we would like to know, because I don't see so many familiar names, are you actually familiar with the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform? You have a single choice, yes, no, a little bit. So that's just to gauge a little bit your knowledge of us. Let's see the results. We'll give a quick snapshot. Okay, so about half know the Policy Learning Platform and the rest not at all or just a little bit. Thank you for that. And the second question is, are you familiar with the concept of sustainability governance? And the same three answering options, just tick a box. And let's see. Okay, so 55% a little bit. 1/3 yes, a firm yes, and 23%, well, 21% no. Okay. So you're at the right place. I will try to shed some light on these two questions with a short introductory presentation. So first of all, who are we? Well, we are from the Interreg Europe program. Interreg Europe is an interregional cooperation program that is targeted mostly at the local and the regional authorities, helping them to build capacity, to plan better and implement better local and regional policies. Besides the project funding, the Interreg Europe program operates a policy learning platform, which is a tool dedicated to knowledge capitalization, essentially. So amongst our services, we animate our community with webinars like today's or larger workshops to share essentially experiences and make the knowledge flow. We collect and we curate a database of over 3,000 good practices from all the policy areas that we're covering, smart, green, connected, etc. We write policy briefs and stories that you can find on our portal. And we also provide on-demand expert services free of charge to local and regional authorities. Now, these are help desks, matchmakings, and peer reviews. But who is we? Well, you can see us on the next slide. The platform is not just a portal, it's backed and animated by real people that you can actually contact and speak with. We specifically organize peer learnings, and we have already 80 peer reviews under our belt in the last 5 years. And well, matchmakings are another format of exchange that's an hour and a half. A peer review usually lasts a day and a half. And so we're busy with these. And I had the pleasure of organizing a peer review on the topic of sustainability governance almost exactly 1 year ago. So on this example, I can illustrate you how this service goes. The city of Tallinn has applied for a peer review to get input from external experts on their approach to improve the governance framework for sustainability of the city. We have then recruited 4 experts from Belgium, Spain, Sweden, and the UK. And we have been sitting together with the team of the city of Tallinn for 1.5 days to exchange knowledge and experience and to work out a set of recommendations specifically for Tallinn. That's what the peer reviews are doing. And from this peer review came the idea for today's webinar, where we want to introduce the topic of sustainability governance also to a wider community. So why does sustainability governance matter for local and regional authorities? Actually, it's a hot topic. And we go here from the very global to the local. From the global, from the UN General Assembly in 2015 came the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with our famous 17 Sustainable Development Goals with its targets and indicators, and the timeline for achievement set to 2030. And many of these goals have to be addressed and implemented at the sub-national level, not by national governance, but under. And cities are actually crucial. Cities generate 70% of global emissions. Half of the humanity is living there with a growing trend. 60% of the Sustainable Development Goals are tackled at local and regional levels, and that makes cities and other local authorities a key player in addressing the policy challenges that are related to sustainable development. And last year, we had the midterm review. Okay, sorry. Let's play a little video that shows how actually local governments are affected by the SDGs. Sorry.
The world is becoming increasingly urban. We'll need to build a new city for 1 million people every week to keep up, or manage the growth of the cities we already have. The battle for sustainable development will be won or lost in our cities, working with the rural areas on which they depend for food and natural resources. Mayors and local governments are already taking action to win this battle. We provide basic services and work with slum dwellers and neighbourhoods to upgrade their living conditions. We improve air quality by investing in public transport and green mobility. We protect the environment through sustainable waste management. We tackle urban segregation by ensuring quality green and public spaces for all. We protect urban cultural heritage for future generations. We monitor and regulate land use to make cities more resilient to climate change and disasters. We involve our communities in planning for inclusive and sustainable urbanisation. Local and regional governments seek strong partnerships with national governments to ensure enabling legal frameworks and adequate resources, and play our full role in achieving Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is Sustainable Cities and Communities. The Sustainable Development Agenda depends on local governments.
Yes, I've borrowed this video from UCLG because it shows nicely the role that the local level is playing. Okay, so the bad news, last year we had the midterm review of the SDGs, and it clearly showed that most of the goals are not on track. You see the map on the right. There is very little green. Green stands for those sustainable development goals that are on track. Okay, but we can attack this deficit by better sustainability governance, because, well, what is that? It's governance for sustainability. It's a system that helps us meet our sustainability targets. And there are not a lot of good definitions or uniform definitions around, but I've borrowed one from the city of Tallinn, which say, to achieve the transformation of our cities, we need a transformative management system. We call this sustainability governance. So I think this is a good thinking framework for today. And I'm very happy to introduce our panelists and our agenda. We have a lot of interest when we have some that have expertise to share already. I'm very happy to have here as a keynote Sara Hoeflich from UCLG. That's a network of cities and local governments. And she will explain about localizing SDGs, which can be an opportunity to make governance more sustainable. And then we have 3 case studies from cities that have already come a long way. We're having the city of Mannheim, represented by Christian Hübel. We're having the city of Tallinn, represented by Stina Heikkila. And last but not least, Malmö with Marcus Ljungqvist. And we end with a little panel discussion. So without further ado, I would like to hand over for the keynote to Sara. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katharina, and thanks Interregio Europe for reaching out to us. And I'm very pleased to show you a little bit of the reality of the Sustainable Development Agenda on international and global level, and of course on the work local and regional governments are doing. So I will be sharing a presentation, and let me see why it's not working. Okay. So you see it, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Put it full screen.
Yeah. I will. Okay.
Great.
Sorry. Okay, if we start looking into the sustainability, this is a term very largely used, and it is a success in our view, United Cities and local governments, that sustainability became a global agenda through the Sustainable Development Goals. So I will show a little bit how we deal with it, how we influence it, and who we are. So I come from United Cities and local governments. This is the largest network of local and regional and metropolitan governments. We work under political leadership. So we work as an association, not as a program, which of course is very important if we want to really influence and voice. We amplify the voice of local and regional government and leaders. We also ensure that the expertise is not only taken up and offered, as for example, Katharina is just showing for Interregio, but that it's also influencing implementation and assessment of the global agenda. And we create a movement around localization together with UN agencies. So this is a little bit how we work. Of course, we always use the word global. You might also have heard about it, but in Spanish, for example, it's really nice because it's sounding. The global and the local governance system speak very, very much to each other. So not only because of the different responsibilities of local and regional government, but also because we talk about very, very concrete services like planning, like service provision, social services, and so on. So for the SDG, we can say it's quite beneficiary that the localization movement is growing so fast, and there's now much more interaction between local and global level. So we institutionalize, of course, not only the SDG agenda, but also there are many, many others. I think many of you also work around climate, but there are CS, the feminist agenda, the water forum, the global compact for migration and refugees, financing for development. There are many, many milestones where we have to institutionalize and visibilize what local and regional government are doing. And currently now we will have, for example, the Second World Social Summit next week. And again, a delegation of mayors is there to insist that the work, of course, is done locally, but that, of course, has retributions and consequences. So when we look into the global agenda and the SDGs, I think Katharina already said why it's so important, so I will not repeat this, but just leave you with the term what localizing is, because, of course, we see this is a two-directional process. It's not only show the agenda and how important it is, but what means implementation. And that's why I'm very happy for the title of Sustainable Governance, because this in the end, after many, many years showing indicators, what has been done, what does it mean, what kind of social services have tackled, for example, poverty, we can say it's very much governance. So it's how we work, and in particular, this in some part new agendas, because they react to the worldwide problems like climate or increasing inequality. This is only possible through governance, because it's not a single department or a ministry that can help out. So the whole system has to change, funding has to pure, and of course, leadership is critical to not only commit, but also to build the internal capacity of cities and regions. So we have like 6 areas of work: so awareness raising, researching, advocacy, capacity building, monitoring, and implementation. So here, of course, implementation I will not show so much, because we have 3 very really star cities, I would say. It's yeah, they are benchmarks, and Malmö, I think, is one of the first cities that even before the SDG agenda was approved, was already showing how the reality of sustainable governance is looking. So when we look at raising awareness, this is the first activity, but what we have found is that when we look at our own constituency, which are thousands of local government, and because we not only have 1,500 members, but we also have associations, we were seeing that they are all into the localization, and awareness raising is quite easy. So they have done a lot, not only using the resources Katharina showed, but also constantly advocating internally and externally with the stakeholders, and also inside government. And there is a lot of progress, and in particular European cities and associations, such as, for example, Belgium Association, have done immense progress. And as it's very easy to copy this, we can say we are happy that so many cities in every region of the world just copy videos, books, and raise awareness around the agenda. Then advocating is very important because we have a United Nation, and we hope, of course, that this United Nation is influencing in particular, national government. So for the SDG, there is a system every year. National governments meet and do voluntary national review. And this is very important because, of course, the national governments, also European Union, you know, there is a Green Deal, there is a SDG commitment, but how is it unfolding? And of course, to measure this unfolding, it's not enough to look only to the ministries, and more local and regional government are involved. And that's because of their own activity of reporting. So we call this voluntary local reviews or voluntary subnational reviews. And there are very, very interesting examples. For example, the German Association has done an SDG tracker. I will later share with you this possibility, but with the objective of really concentrating and making data comparative and easy to grab. So you can measure your own progress. And this we do, of course, we then gather to report, and in the high-level political forum, which takes place every year, we are presenting a lot of local knowledge and local inspiration. And we can say today, definitely local governments are taken really serious as the main implementer of the SDGs. However, we look into an agenda with a time limit. 2030 is tomorrow, so we can say, as Katharina already showed, unfortunately, the agenda is not on track. So I will not add too much on this, but just remind, for example, the two elements which we find now key. One is the disaster and the increasing exposure and vulnerability of so many city dwellers that live in cities that grow very fast, and of course with slum areas and very vulnerable. So these disasters are translating into an enormous financial risk, but of course also into a sustainable and social risk. And the other one is SDG 16. These were SDGs that were reviewed recently. And here we know, and I think Europe is also, unfortunately, my own country, in risk, but the polarization, the political polarization, and with this will come a return to centralize, and a return to centralize in particular fiscal resources. So these are political risks for cities and for the governance system as a whole. So when we look at, of course, we have for the SDG agenda is very, very rich. We have 17 goals, so that is resulting in a very, very interesting agenda also for learning. We also do this, as you do in the Interregion platform. We take all the global agendas and bring them close, not only to inspire local governments and regional government, but also to get their stories and to get them more involved. And we can say this is very successful, not only with the SDG agenda, but also with the climate agenda, with the Sendai agenda and migration agenda, and many, many more. The capacity building, we do also training of trainers. So we try to create a network of networks, because we know that like in your case programs, they can do much deeper work, but we of course need to connect everybody. And that's why we also do our own training offers, and in particular for those, for example, Latin American cities that are very, very active and very committed, but do not have the opportunity and funding to get programs. They usually look at all these free of charge offers in our platforms, which you can find here. Then the final point, the implementation. Here are some examples of implementation. Of course, when you are local government, you do provide public services, for example, water, sanitation. All this can always be reviewed with the Sustainable Development Agenda. This means, are the indicators really meaningful? Do we budget according to the priorities we have taken after looking to the indicators? And the same with participatory processes and the democracy, the multi-governance policy implementation. This is very important because many of the very, very strong cities are oppositions, for example. And so we need to remind the opportunity of coming together, and that multi-governance is taken also up by the United Nations as a system. And of course, the collaboration with the university to create knowledge systems, because we get a lot of knowledge, and that's useful for universities that can help with data, but of course they educate the future generations. So here you can see a little example when we have the global agenda and break it down to the urban scale. Maybe you know the public space, for example. There are many, many ways on looking to public space, and we experience in our own learning environments, which is peer learning or moderated learning, that public space is really easy to take as an opportunity and to change. Mannheim has just made an immense change of parks. We might know later a little bit of this. But also the urban scale. So you might have heard about the 15-minute cities. This is one example, but we look more into what is a peripheral neighborhood, because many of the cities report inequality also spatially. So of course, when we look today at urban planning, it's not the same. I'm architect and planner myself, and I can say infrastructure is now only one of the pieces we look at. So, and here to finalize, I think we all have to continue localizing. We have to not only to show indicators, we have to show ways forward. And of course, this is meeting in principles like we continue awareness raising, we mainstream localization. We have to remind the decentralization. We have to at least in UCLG, we promote feminism as a way, of course, a little bit broader than only women and men. It is more about equality and rights. And we systemize the local and regional government involvement in the international agenda. So this is a journey that has to continue. And I hope we can work more together. I hope we can use the opportunity of this dialogue to know more about you. And please feel all at home at UCLG. We are long-standing and open for anybody who is local government or supporter. Thank you, Katharina.
Well, thank you, Sara. It's great to see that UCLG exists as a network to go to, and that you have plenty of resources for local authorities that want to improve their sustainability governance. It's great to hear that these resources are also, I don't know all, but you mentioned that the courses are for free. And so let's try a definition. If I say, what do you think of my definition? If I say localizing SDGs means breaking down the global goals to the level of local authorities, aligning city strategies and budgets with the different sustainable development goals, and creating an enabling framework for their implementation. Would that be a valid grasp of the concept?
Yes, but I think it is important. We always talk about bidirectional, no? So that what we observe a lot, in particular in cooperation programs, that local and regional government are seen as a receiver of good ideas from United Nations, and this is definitely not the case. I mean, local and regional government are managing a lot of tasks and inspire day by day. So this bidirectional is another piece we need also to look at now, and not only for United Nations. I think in the European agenda is the same. You cannot expect the bureaucrats from their desk to nurture thousands of local government. We need to establish dialogues, knowledge, tracing, and communication. So in that case, I would add this.
Yes, Very valid point, because we see the creativity and the interesting approaches that are all emanating from the local level. And that certainly doesn't come from the top. Thank you very much, Sara. Let's hear a little bit now from the cities, individual cases on how they have gone about to include the SDGs into their own governance systems. And we start with Mannheim. So the floor is open for Christian Hübel, who is also the chair of the Eurocities SDG task force, by the way. So a man very knowledgeable on this matter. Christian, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Katharina, and also Interreg for inviting us to show and share our experiences in the last 15 years about sustainable governance with you. And we do this on the one way we like to show, and perhaps somebody says, wow, there is a benefit in for us, but we also share it. And we have at the moment, I see it down under there, about 200 colleagues here, which have big knowledge. So we are always interested when somebody is saying, hey, you can do this better, or in the reflection. So we are really looking forward in comments, and so that we can improve our governance system. Yes, we come to Mannheim. Next slide, please. For those who don't know, Mannheim, it's a mid-sized city with about 330,000 inhabitants, but we are the center of the region Rhine-Neckar, which means we are dealing with 2.4 million inhabitants, and due to several wars, we are at the edge of 3 federal states, which makes it sometimes very hard, because nobody is thinking about borders of federal states when he is going to work, or when he is going to a cinema, or when he's going to a health system. It's all mixed, and this means also we have to deal with governance structures, but also with a culture of working together for the common good. Next slide, please. When we were making our way to a sustainable governance, it was with some experiences that we said we've done a lot, but sometimes we have not achieved what we want. And when you have evaluations with universities and they're saying you, okay, hypothetically it was good, but when you make an evaluation, they're saying it doesn't work, then you have to think about also your system. And so we said, okay, we need a new management system. This means a big change administration reform, which from the public nobody's interested in, and the administration is totally shocked to say, okay, why we should change. But we said we have to make it, because we need the best machinery in the administrations to fulfill our sustainable vision. And so we first built a management system with a vision and target for the departments, with stakeholders, enterprises, universities, politics, etc. And then we said, when this system is working, we are going to the public, and in the big process, we want to hear from the public, what does it mean to be sustainable in Mannheim? So we were very orientated on the classical management circle, on the input, output, outcome, and then the impact. And then when this was working in 2014, we're saying now it's time to make a new vision. And so luckily, the Agenda 2030 came with the 17 SDGs, which was for us now the guidance to develop a vision with the citizens for Mannheim, but also for contributing to the global goals. And so we made a big participation process, which was lasting about 1.5 years. About 3,000 people were directly involved via workshops, etc., and about 10,000 with opinion polls and all these things, so that we have a good basis for a guiding principle that we have citizen-orientated municipality to bring the people into the vision development. We are also then, since 2015, very active in international networks, because we want to reflect us, we want to understand what is globally meant, but also we want to bring back feedback from the local level to the global level, what is working or what are obstacles. And so we were very keen also for sharing our knowledge, but also getting into networks, which is sometimes for municipalities very hard when you say, okay, we are now at the HLPF or at the World Urban Forum, or we're talking to UCLG. This is a big step for municipalities in Germany, but we made it and we had a lot of profit from it. Next slide, please. with this vision, which has now 7 strategic goals, like the social and cultural empowerment for the people here, or equality, diversity, and integration. We're also directly relating the SDGs, because in the method, we first asked the people, SDG number 1, no poverty, what does it mean for Mannheim? And then the people has to say, okay, no poverty for Mannheim means we need affordable houses, we have to help the people to get into employment, etc. pp. But then we said, okay, there are 3 dimensions. There's the first dimension of localizing it in the city. Then we say what we are doing, what is perhaps affecting others. And it's not about only the emissions. We see when we're talking about no poverty, we're talking about fair trade. Huh? Are we responsible for poorness in the other part of the world? And this is not only an issue of chocolate or coffee. It's a big issue when you're building streets. For instance, the stones in our pedestrian zones, we are looking for fair trade there, so that no children work in Asia or South America is risen by the city of Mannheim, because we are wanting cheap stones. We see then here to the relation to the SDG. Every SDG is addressed. We also looked in developing the vision with the people that not only 1 or 2 were in the focus, because we said it's an integrated system, and the 7 SDGs are addressing almost every target and needs for a city, and then you have to compromise it, because every city is totally different. No? And so you have to say what is fitting for Mannheim, and these 7 goals are fitting for Mannheim. That doesn't mean that they're fitting for other cities. Every city has to look for their own strategic goals. Next slide, please. From the governance system, then you get an imagination. We have the strategic goals on the top. Then we have for each strategic goals some sub-goals. Here in the example, when we said Mannheim guarantees the educational equality and prevents poverty, the social and cultural participation of all Mannheim residents is ensured. This means participation education of all stages, or youth employment rate has to go down as a top indicator. And then you have, for instance, impact goals in the departments, in the youth departments, that we are saying socially disadvantaged pupils, especially in social areas with high and very high social problems, are supported by us with regard to equal educational opportunities. And therefore, you also have an impact indicator. And then underneath, you have the measure, which everybody is knowing, expansion of school, social work, homework, etc. And so we see what and how the measures are contributing to the next step of the goals, and how they are contributing to the Mannheim goals on the top level. Next slide, please. We have then made a voluntary local review, because in discussion with other front-runner cities, we see this is a proper instrument. And we also discussed with New York and Helsinki, which were the 2 first. We were the first in Germany, but it's not about being the first. It's always about what does it bring you, how is the need there. And then we see the one thing is contributing to the global monitoring, but the other thing is what's in for us and how we are using this VLR. And so we said the one thing is the VLR, and then we are making out of the VLR an annual report that we say every year in the structure of a VLR, we want to see where our city stands. And then 2 years ago, we were able to bring it in the governance structure as an official strategic management document, not as a reporting document. We said, no, it's the budget plan and it's the annual report, so that you easily see what's the state of achieving the SDGs and achieving and localizing the Mannheim 2030 vision. Next slide, please. This is also like the other chart of view for the global level, because we have too many reports and too many Excels, etc. And so we always try to make it very easily, so that the councillors and the public can see, okay, where Mannheim is standing in achieving the goals. And such visuals are very easily giving you an overview. And then you can ask and you can go deeper. We have a lot of data, but first of all, the people have to be connected to the discussion and the evidence-based discussion, which are we wanting. And so we try to make it very easily for the people to see. Next slide, please. There you can see from the strategic goal 1, the indicators for achieving educational equality. As examples, youth unemployment rate or applicants without a trading place, so that you get a little bit of a feeling what indicator we were working out. We are also having some indicators from the German SDG indicators, but we have a lot of own indicators because we are looking a little bit more, in our opinion, of quality indicators, and we also have every year an opinion poll to the citizens that they are reflecting us where we are standing. Next slide, please. Then we have made also target values for 2030. This one is not bad. It's the youth unemployment rate, but we made it also to see where we are on our way. And sometimes it's very political because, for instance, even if we are very ambitious, we will see that in 2030, about 40% of the children who are coming to school are not able to speak German in a way so that they can follow the school lessons. And when you see this, that even if we are ambitious, we don't reach this goal, you have to make a political discussion, but not only in the thing of we have to do more. The other way is we want to think about what we can do better, what we can learn from others, from the Scandinavian e.g., how they're making education. And then to say, okay, the resources are not growing, we have to look for better solutions. And then you're looking otherwhere and trying to bring this into our German system, which is sometimes very hard. But when you see where you're on your way to 2030, you get another discussion in the political councillor meeting. Next slide, please. And then that you see the system, how it works from the strategy documents. Beyond this, there is a mobility plan, there is a green city plan, etc. There was also, as mentioned, the Bundesgartenschau, the garden exhibition, where it transformed a military area into a big garden and leisure park. And so you see everybody should contribute to the top level. And when there is a new strategy, it has to be first reflected with the top strategy so that everybody is aligned. Next slide, please. Lessons learned for us. Try to align your actions and a budget with the big city vision, because if you have a vision or a monitoring instruments and it is not aligned with the budget plan, people are not talking about it seriously in the council meeting or in the administration. So try to align it. Then always try to make annually a report so that you see where are you staying in your progress to your way to 2030, and also try to get quick wins, because the obstacle or also the big danger in governance structure is that it's very technically, and so you have to say, okay, we are doing this for the strategy, and this is a concrete measure. It's building a new kindergarten, or it's making a free public transport for a weekend on Christmas Eve or whatever. But the people have to see that it's all aligned and they have a direct connection to the daily work. And last but not least, we say be active in international networks, because you're learning a lot, you're understanding more what the top level, the global level wants from you, but you can also give feedback what is working from the top level and what they could do better so that the cities can fulfill the global goals. Thank you very much, and I'm looking for your questions.
Thank you very much, Christian. I think it's very powerful to see how Mannheim has integrated the SDGs with its own vision and strategy. I noticed that the timeline is the same, 2030. You have the goals, the sub-goals, and you translate them into what they mean concretely in the context of Mannheim. I think this is a very important work done. And it's interesting to see that you have these quantitative and qualitative targets, that they're nicely staged over time and then coupled with the impact indicators. And of course, very important to have a good monitoring and reporting loop. And on that, we have a question from the audience, Astrid.
Yeah, thank you, Katharina. So the first question we're having is actually relating to data. So where you're getting your local data from, because as many people are feeling, it's you have national data, but then already at the regional level it gets more difficult. So how do you do that? And the second question, which actually relates to this, is who monitors your KPIs and how regularly you do that?
Yeah, thank you, Astrid. First of all, we collecting also own data, e.g. via opinion polls we have annually. This costs money, but some data are not existing. No? We have the national statistics, even I like the SDG portal of Bertelsmann. It's very quick. You get an output and say yes, but I think we have from the Bertelsmann about 1/3 of the indicators. Then we have other indicators from the federal state or from other statistics. And then we brought in about 20 to 25% new indicators, which we have to collect. And usually the best instrument for us was making an annual opinion poll, which cost about 40,000 euros. But then you get a direct reflection. Are the people trusting each other? Are they trusting the councillors? No? Or for instance, are they satisfied with some services of the administration? And controlled, is it by the strategic management unit? That's us, but we are only at the moment about 5 people. No? And the thing was always when we were implementing the strategic management system, not to make a big strategic management unit with 20 controllers and very hierarchically, we said, no, it has to be a kind of lateral management and a lot of coordination. So we have coordination circles with the controllers or with other experts from the city administration. And so that it's more a dialogue. And they are collecting data, then we bring it together, we are discussing it, and then it's going to the city councillors. So responsible are we, but all colleagues are in there, because our experience is if you don't do it, then everybody's saying the strategic management is doing, and then you get a gap and a wider gap, because they're saying they're doing it and they're the bad guys, top-down controlling, etc. And so this was for us the better way.
Thank you for your really good answer here that everybody sees it. And you do that basically on an annual basis or like continuously, or like it's at one point at annual basis, you have like this report and then you start again, or how is this working?
Yeah, the data comes, it depends on some data, especially national or federal data comes very late, no? In June or otherwhere. Then we say, okay, when we want to bring the report in about May or at least July to the city councillors, we have to say in some data we are very actual from the year before, and in others we say it's the year before the other year, because we don't want to wait till the latest data there is, because sometimes in school, for instance, they have other terms and time circles.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's the questions we have for the moment, Katharina. And thank you also to Sara for answering the questions that we had with regard to certificates and personal data. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, that's great. We see that Mannheim has a strategic management office, and that's a good bridge to build to our next presenter, to Tallinn, because Tallinn has also given itself a strategic city management office. And the floor is open for Stina Heikkila now, who is a sustainability governance advisor and is part of the strategic management office. Stina, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to participate. I'm stepping in to cover for my director, Krista Campos, who is head of the international relations department today. I wanted to mention that also because we are working very closely with the strategic management office, and this has been a quite interesting journey in itself, working on the international office and the strategic management office on the topic of sustainability governance. So I'm gonna present more of the journey. Can everyone see my screen? Good. So, well, a few words about Tallinn. Tallinn is the capital of Estonia, located just under Finland on top of Latvia, as you can see here on the map, and has about 460,000 inhabitants, which actually is over 35% of the entire population of Estonia. So this is also a sort of important thing to keep in mind, that a lot of economic and other activity is kind of concentrated in Tallinn And the governments are, of course, also both the Tallinn government and the national government located in Tallinn, and that can also create interesting governance dynamics. So Tallinn has one of the best preserved medieval towns in Northern Europe and is UNESCO World Heritage List, and it actually, as a city, has over 800 years of history. Not everyone knows that, so it's an interesting fact. And I also want to say sort of credit. I'm going to present a lot of work that I'm not directly involved and can take credit for in the city administration. So I want to make sure that this is said, that we have also the strategy unit of 6 people, 3 to 4 people working full time on the Tallinn 2035 long-term strategy, and who are really dealing with the nuts and bolts of all this work. And I will explain how this has then been done in collaboration with the international relations department, and how we are extending a bit on the SDG localization journey, let's say, that we started. So this is just to say that when working with the long-term strategy, you get a lot of different frameworks on your table. I think everyone can relate to that, whether from national government, from the EU. We have the global framework that we really like because it's so comprehensive and can actually fit everything in it. And it's a very useful framework, therefore, to make sure that we are not leaving aspects behind when it comes to developing the city. So the task is really to integrate and to align, and to whichever way you sort of put it, but to make sure that if we read the UN Sustainable Development Goal as the definition of sustainable development, which provides this universal understanding of what are we actually talking about when we talk about a sustainable future, and how do we then translate that into the local level. So the city strategy of Tallinn actually was developed before the very close links to the UN Sustainable Development Goals were made. So it was done in likewise to Mannheim in a very consultative practice, coming up with what really matters for the citizens, what are the competences that we have as a city, and where do we want to go in the future. So we have six strategic goals that were formulated in and adopted back in 2020. And then this is a sort of a famous living document. So it's being constantly extended and improved. And this is also where the SDGs plays an important role when you start to look very carefully at localizing the SDGs, how you can strengthen even an existing strategy and make it more sustainable. So this is what happened starting in 2021. Tallinn became the lead partner of a network of 19 cities in Europe called Global Goals for Cities, and started to work on really analyzing the links between the long-term strategy and the SDGs, mapping if there were any areas that needed further attention when looking at an assessment, which is one of sort of the first steps of the localization process, as we have heard, that you can identify, say, oh, maybe we need to do something more on gender equality. Maybe we need to pay more attention to the biodiversity in the city, things that have been on the table, but maybe not got as much attention as it deserves when you start to analyze it from this point of view. So again, we also have, similarly to Mannheim, some strategic key performance indicators that have been identified that are linked to the SDG targets, and of course also to some other frameworks, sometimes to complement, like the Green Accord or climate goals from the EU and so on, and also some operational indicators that we are following. There are plans to develop the Tallinn's first VLR, the voluntary local review, drawing on this existing system. So actually next week we also have a day in Tallinn where we have invited some cities to learn from them in terms of structure and methodology, and just to kickstart the process. And we have also invested a lot in awareness and stakeholder engagement, and I will come back to this a little bit later as well. So in terms of strategic planning, this is also what very, again, I can piggyback on what Christian has already said. the typical annual wheel. No, the budget needs to be decided. All the departments would work on their sectoral priorities, linking it back to the strategy again, and going back to the city council for approval. And there's some back and forth where the strategy unit or the strategy bureau is very closely working with all the departments, and also, of course, trying to, as we usually say, break the silos. No, try to people understand it's not only about my work, it's about the objectives that we have and the sustainable future. So and this is, I think, most people from local government in the room can relate to that, that it's when the budget follows the silos, then it's very hard to motivate people to work across them. So this is something that we are working on, trying to link the financial planning very closely to the long-term strategy and provide the incentives in this way for departments to work together on the outcomes, and not as the business as usual, that you are used to getting your pot of money and spending it. So all that is very good. The system is solid. And then we crash. Someone has said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So when it comes to challenges, this is more or less what the experience has been, that of course we need that backbone, we need this strategy, but we also need to socialize it. And we need to, when we ask any random staff member in the municipality, what are the UN Sustainable Development Goals, you're likely to maybe get a, I don't know, why is it relevant for me? And this is what we are working on changing now. And it's also something that we discussed a lot in the peer review session that we had almost 1 year ago now, that Katharina mentioned. And we could learn a lot, especially also from the city of Malmö, that we will hear from later. Of course, political support and the competence of the staff is crucial. The sustainable development is often still understood as mainly green transition. So that's where the SDGs really help to open that vision, that it's about social, economic, and environmental. It's not only about the green. And we also are really trying to work more closely with the national government as well. And that's what leads us to the focus on governance, because we know that achieving the SDGs is a lot about governance. So briefly, what we are trying to do is, we have the strategy and the policy development fairly well in place. So as you can see, we're working along these 3 pillars: policy development, multi-actor and multi-level governance, and organizational development. So this is a bit of jargon, but I think you can relate to what content-wise this means. So the policy development is the side of when we develop a new policy, we run an SDG analysis, making sure that it's aligned with that it addresses all the dimensions of sustainability and so on and so forth. We're currently working on a tool to try to look at the future possible impact of investments and budget decisions. So you can see, if we go for this option, what can we expect in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in terms of impact on our key performance indicators. In the multi-actor, multi-level governance, this is really where the citizen participation and working with the national government comes in. Different initiatives here, like a citizen assembly that we tried for the first time last year. Participatory budgeting has been going for 5 years. There's an open city hub that is also, it's already in place, but being now filled more and more with activities, opening up the city administration, sort of opening the door and letting people come inside to see what is happening, and also bringing together other municipalities in Estonia to share and transfer some knowledge that what we have learned. And the organizational development is about this culture building. We are working on a strategic communication plan specifically for sustainability. This was also, like I mentioned, something we discussed a lot in the peer review. Also working with HR to try to understand how we can better integrate sustainability into different training programs. And every year, the Strategy Bureau organizes a strategy party, which is like the biggest event for the administration. And it's open to all employees, and it's organized both in person and online, because there's no way to organize for all the 1,000 of staff that are working for the city of Tallinn, but everyone can follow on the intranet TV, inviting different speakers, talking about the challenges that are most pressing in the city. My time is running out. And behind this, more closer related to my work, is that we are trying to share this knowledge through a competence center. So I already mentioned that we are building our own model. We are also organizing peer learning and providing support to other Estonian cities, but also Ukrainian and Georgian cities. Member of 2 Urbact networks, if you know this program, which is, like Christian mentioned, a great way to exchange knowledge and learn together. And finally, we really appreciated the opportunity when we launched this work on sustainability governance. Very early on, we got the opportunity to have the experts there, so we could present our original ideas, the pillars, and ask, like, does this make sense? What should we really zoom in on? What should we maybe drop from the table because we need to focus? And it was a great opportunity for us to feel confident in moving forward and even to engage some of our local colleagues. So thank you very much. I hope that I was more or less on time.
Almost perfect. Thank you, Stina. A very interesting presentation from Tallinn. Thank you. You made a big effort with awareness raising and the stakeholder engagement. Very noteworthy, your first citizen assembly, the introduction of the participatory budgeting. We all know that opening up city administrations is not coming naturally to administrations. I also like your emphasis on linking the SDGs with the budget, and that the budget should not only follow the silos, because else cross-department cooperation does not come easy. I don't think we have any questions from the participants. Does any of the other speakers want to follow up with Stina with one question? We have time for one.
Talk us more about the party. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's so it, like I mentioned, it's organized every year by the strategy unit, and it's basically a full day of presentations and exercises, usually in some fun venue in the city. So it's really get that party feeling, that is something special, and inviting both international and national speakers from universities, from NGOs, from the city administration itself. And every year there are different themes that are being addressed. I think last year, for example, there was the launch of the values that the Tallinn administration had adopted. So it's a great way to disseminate this, that did you know that now we have these 5 values: collaboration, experimentation, trust, and goodness. I don't remember now the 5th. So it's an opportunity to broadcast to the whole organization and creating a community around it. And yeah, so that's the strategy party.
Yes, this is not a joke, a follow-up question. Actually, it is a very good tool, the party, to create a common narrative and understanding and feeling. This is very important. So thank you for sharing this out of the box way to, let's say, bring everybody on board. And I also know that Marcus is a big fan of communicating and trying to use different means to create the shared understanding of what the SDGs mean for Malmö. And this is my bridge to build to Marcus for his presentation. Marcus, over to you.
Thank you. No pressure at all when Stina says we learned so much from Malmö. Let's see. There we go. All right, hopefully you see it now.
Yes.
Good. All right, so thank you for having me here. So I'm from Malmö. My only assignment in Malmö kind of is to coordinate our work with the SDGs and Agenda 2030. I have 1 colleague, so we're 2 people working on it. And I think Mannheim and Tallinn have said most of what we're doing, but I'll take it a little bit more a deeper dive into the communication, because people have listened to me before and knows that I am a very big fan of communicating stuff and to do it in the right way to get things done. So Malmö is a mid-sized city. It's 360,000 people. It's a very young city. 50% of the people are under 35, so it's a very young city. It's also the fastest growing city in Sweden. It's a very diverse city with a lot of nationalities, which is a possibility and also a challenge. It's very fast growing, starts 9 new companies every day in Malmö. So that's a challenge for like offices and yeah. The driving force for us to work with SDGs and the sustainable development is actually, it goes back way to like the 90s, 1992, when the Agenda 2021 came. We started back then when we were a dying industrial city, and our mayor said that we will go to a knowledge city instead, and we will do that by becoming the most sustainable city in the world. And also when the Agenda 2030 came, our mayor was the first one getting up there on stage and saying, we are the first city to reach those goals. And all of us working in administration were like, oh my God, okay. But that's good because we have the politicians with us. Also, it's a young and diverse and growing city, as I said. So it's really needed that we build it in a sustainable way, and that as the city is built, so everyone, it is a city for everyone, basically. And it said that everything we do should be based on sustainable development with a human rights-based approach. So that in our politics are very, very clear on that. So we need to integrate it into the steering and management system in the whole city. And this is very much exemplified by the presidency we got in ICLEI recently. It's Malmö who has the presidency, and our mayor is the spokesperson, and that is also the way she communicates it, which is very important because it's everyone needs to take the responsibility for that then. So the SDGs in our local context is very important for us because me, who have been working with sustainable development my whole life, sometimes I have a hard time to say what the SDG means. And so when I go to my colleagues in the city, it's even harder for them, of course. So it's very important to do that. But what we have done is that we have connected SDGs to our highest political goals that everybody is working for. And also the city's budget, which is the agenda to reach the political goal. And since we have connected the political goal to the SDGs, it also means that the budget is our local Agenda 2030. And to do that, we have a strategy. I think we took that in 2018, and it's a political document. So it's politicians who decided that that's the way to do it. And the main points in that is to incorporating sustainable development into the steering and management system, hence in all policies and strategies. So everything we do must be from a sustainable development point of view. We also don't work with sustainability. I have a little bit harder time when people say that. We work with sustainability. Sustainability is something we reach. We are working with development, developing the city's activities, and also developing what we're doing. And that development should be sustainable. So we can reach our sustainable goals. And for Malmö, that means the SDGs. And that's why I think communication is so important, because it's hard to communicate something very clear to someone who is not working with it every day if we don't use the words right, I think. And also, we don't work with the goals. We don't work with SDGs. We work with our daily work, and we need to get that more sustainable, hence sustainable development. And in that way, reaching our goals, like in anything we do. As I say, we work with SDGs through our budget and the political goals we have. And to follow up that, we don't invent new indicators or KPIs. We are using the natural ones that is used for the SDGs in a national level, but we modify it a little bit because we don't have mountains, we don't have deserts and stuff like that in Malmö, so we don't really need those. And we're also using indicators that we use in our regular monitoring system. And for example, in the ecological dimension, we go through the environmental program we have. In the social dimension, we go through our human rights policy in the city. And the ecological dimension through our green and social bonds. And there's a lot of follow-up on those. So we just use those indicators or KPIs. And we built a digital tool where we collect all the KPIs that is relevant for the SDGs follow-up. And we have that in that digital tool so we can see how we're doing. Yeah, I guess I'm fast here, I think. So this is more what I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into, because communication is a very important thing in this for us. And it's about creating a narrative that everybody can stand behind. And that is very important when you try to change the system. And especially when you work with sustainable development, because we need to push in the same way. We need everybody to feel ownership about it. And when we work with development that is sustainable, that should lead to a more sustainable society and also reach our goals. So this means that everybody needs to take responsibility for what they are to take responsibility for. So it's not every teacher, park attendant, or group manager or city planner needs to take all the goals in consideration, but they need to take the goals in consideration that they are affecting in our job to the progress towards the goals. So right now we're building a platform for Agenda 2030, and that platform aims to be a storytelling platform where we can use, which we can use as a sustainability report that we do annually in the city now. It's a huge apparatus right now to do that every year, but hopefully we get this platform on board so we can have it more like continuously all the time. So we keep it updated all the time. And the platform will also be a knowledge platform and a support for our departments and politicians where you can find information and facts and data and so on. It will be an internal tool or an internal platform, but we will make a scaled down version that will be publicly available. Also, this dedicated communicator was something I talked a lot about in the peer review in Tallinn. And the reason for that is that it's very important to have a communication department on board from the start, because I have been working with sustainable development my whole life. I also worked a lot with communication, but I still don't see all the questions I can ask myself. So a communicator, they can ask you questions that you don't think of because they have the sole focus on communication and they see things through the lens of communication. So it's very, very important to have them on board right in the start. The same goes with HR. I won't talk about that now, but the same thing there, and the same reason. I also use coaching a lot, professional coaching to help coworkers. I cannot solve everything, but they can. And by using coaching, I can help them to find a solution on their own. So in that way, we can learn to speak the same language, and I can understand what they're doing, and they get a better understanding what the SDGs are and why we're doing this. Also, I have a podcast. We are thinking about using more YouTube and social media, how to communicate and to communicate within the organization, but also to the citizens. And this podcast I got a lot of good feedback from that, because it's a good way to build a network. It's a good way for me to understand what's happening in the city. It's also a good way to get the employees to understand what their role in the big scheme is. So if they're a teacher, they understand what their role is in achieving the sustainability goals. And I've had a number of people on there, like social workers, tree specialists, teachers, procurement experts, like everything. It's very interesting to listen to and talk to them. So lessons learned. I was thinking a bit about this really hard, because we learn all the time. Every time I talk to someone, I learn more. I've listened to Mannheim a couple of times, and I kind of know what you're doing. But still, when Christian is talking now, it's like, oh my God, this is so good. I need to do this. I need to remember this. So we all learn all the time. But what I could say that it takes a lot of time and dedication to work with sustainability. But it's very important to understand that it's helpful to work with all the 17 goals or work towards the 17 goals, because you get a really good effect if you have all of them together, because there's so much synergies in that. And I also don't like when we talk about it's a big challenge, it will take so much money, it will take so much effort, because it really not. Because if you incorporate it in your like daily work and just change that development, you can save so much money and resources from working with all the 3 dimensions in sustainability. And also to create a common ground, to communicate that, and to find a shared view, so you are able to steer in the same direction, so you're using the same language, because it's a very complex question and it's very hard to understand. And if you talk to a person who is not working with this all the time, they have a hard time to follow if you don't find a common language. So create a shared language, create a shared view on what's going on. Also, integrating in regular system, I cannot underline how important that is. Also, that is super hard to do because it's basically you want to integrate something in a system that already exists, and it's everything. Everything a city is working with needs to get in there and be changed. And also some of it are regulated by laws, so that is also an aspect that we need to figure out. And the third thing about the system is that we try to do stuff into a system that actually got us to the point where we are today, which is kind of unsustainable. So we need to like really change that system. But a first step is to integrate it, and slowly tweaking and changing and trying.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I don't really have more.
Great. Thank you very much,
I'm sorry.
Marcus. No, sorry to cut you, but
Okay.
amazing presentation. Just want to have a few more minutes at the end to discuss with
I
everybody. Very impressive, your work, and you go back a long time. I mean, not you personally, maybe you as well, but Malmö as a city. And I think very precious the emphasis on keeping things as simple as possible. Try to use data and indicators and KPIs that you are already working with, not building a parallel system. And then also I think the emphasis on the creation of a shared narrative is very interesting. And we've also heard it from Tallinn, the out-of-the-box tools to create a common understanding, a language. We also had a question from the chat that was asking, how are you actually building this shared vision? But then you explained more, and I hope this addressed the question in the chat as well. One question to you: who should driving this process? From the private sector, we know that usually we say the commitment starts at the top, at the city level. Who do you see as the initiator and the driver?
That is a super hard question, but it's a hard question because I think we need to do it together, and I think the driver must come from both places. I mean, we couldn't do it if we didn't have the politicians with us, but they couldn't do it without the administration either. And we can for sure not do it without the private sector in Malmö. We have like for energy and infrastructure and public transport and so on. So it's very much a common like effort, I would say. Yeah.
I think this is a great answer, because the administration cannot do it without the political support, and vice versa. Yeah, great. I would like to use the remaining time to open the floor to all the speakers and to address a couple of questions with you. Now, all the city examples are coming from larger cities. I think many small municipalities are wondering, like, how to deal with the additional burdens in terms of human resources and money that the localizing of the SDGs is putting on them. Or is it not additional, or is it substituting? Maybe you have a take on that, like how to deal with this burden, also for smaller municipalities. Floor is open. Who wants to go first?
I mean, I can go first, but because that's what I mean. I don't think it's a burden or a challenge. We have a lot of communication with smaller municipalities, and we kind of envy them because they are smaller. It's easier to administrate and coordinate. Of course, we have more resources, but that is also why it's very important to share knowledge and help each other, and to talk to the neighboring municipalities and so on, and maybe share the systems or the data collecting or something like that. But I think you can find a way to do it without it getting too heavy of a burden for you.
And I think if I can add onto that, because I was also scanning a little bit on the chat, and I saw an interesting question on how what we have talked about relates to sustainability governance and systems change. And I think it's that realization that it's not an add-on. It's not now we are continuing all our usual business and we add sustainable development on top, and we add 17 goals on top of whatever we are doing. But it's really that change in mindset. And it, of course, in the sense it takes burden because it takes time, right? The change doesn't happen so easily, but it's more going to be about bending what everyone do. I think Marcus also mentioned that, bending what everyone is doing towards sustainable development, making sure that we are not doing anything that is not sustainable development. We shouldn't be doing that anymore. And of course, we need some more expertise. But it's not. We don't need necessarily much more staff. We might need some agents to steward the change for some time. And this is, I think, what we are all sharing, that mission in this webinar, that we are trying to do that. But it's I think it's really might be a little bit of a upfront investment to say, yes, we're going to do this now, but it should not be a permanent burden on the organization. That would be my few cents on it.
Yeah, maybe I think, as Marcus said, for smaller municipalities, it is often more easy because integrated planning, which is very much a consequence of sustainable governance, is of course also more easy if you are not so much specialized. And here's an advantage, but also I think democratically, because much of the agenda is only done and very useful with the participation of the diverse stakeholders. So the social stakeholders in a smaller system sometimes are engaged in specific SDG and not really understanding governance, but have, of course, interest to protect the forest or to very, very specific interest. And the SDG agenda is a way how to work with local governments for those who have not yet engaged. And also for smaller, I think the SDG agenda in particular is very broadly known. It's not only governments who know about this. So private sector and private stakeholders also, or universities, they are very easy to get on board. So I think there's a system. And for us, what we see, the SDG agenda is a way also to look internationally. Probably this is with our 3 cities here, they have a long experience of international work, but for smaller cities, it's a way forward.
Yeah, also, as it mentioned, sometimes it's easier to make this integrated thinking when you are a smaller community, because you have it in mind or in 2 or 3 persons and they're discussing it with each other. And sometimes the mayor could very easily make a decision, for instance, when there is, as an example, we have to repair the water tube, and then the mayor says, hey, that's a good issue and the opportunity. There we are making a drinking fountain. No? In a big city, you are discussing with the silos, does it make sense? Does it make sense on this location? Who is to pay it, etc. pp. So this could also be an opportunity. And when we had sometimes discussions with cities, I'm sometimes also asking them, are you not doing something with gender equality or for the climate or whatever? And they're saying, yeah, we're doing this. And I said, yeah, in this way, you are still contributing to the SDGs. No? So it's not additionally, the additional thing and value is seeing it in an integrated way, then to sensitize the people, what they're doing, what is reflecting others, and then also looking for a little bit this, like the SDGs have indicators, getting a little bit more in an evidence-based discussion in the politics, but also in the administration. And for little cities, we have also in Germany the agency for the municipality in one world, and there you can sign a declaration that you want to contribute, and there you get help. And from these little cities, some little cities make an extra declaration for little cities. That's the Eltville declaration, that they're saying we little cities to contribute to the Agenda 2030 because. And so there is a lot going on. So don't be scared.
I think this is very interesting that you mentioned these resources, and that will be actually my next question. Put yourself in the shoes of, let's say, a city that has not yet done all this systematic works. Maybe share with us a little bit what other types of support networks and tools and blueprints are available, and where to get started. Maybe, Sara, you have already mentioned some. I give you the word first. Maybe you can recap. Where would you recommend to start now?
Yeah, I think the way of starting is very open. Of course, it depends if there is awareness. It's not needed to make an awareness campaign, but maybe to look on specific strategies. And depending on the scale and also on the commitment and volunteering, it's very important also to bridge financing. I think that in the end, if the budget is also read with an SDG lens, this means everything is more sustainable inside the local government. So sometimes financing is at the end, but it can also happen if there is it depends a little bit where the city is. No? If you have a macro project like Mannheim, then of course the financing you get out of this line is an opportunity to make a sustainable governance and to just think about, I don't implement only with engineering consultancy, I also do social services, so you can integrate the different pieces.
Okay, any other guidelines? Is there like a vademecum, like a step-by-step way of integrating sustainability governance principle in the city strategy?
I mean, for me, it would be, first of all, tell the people there are 70 goals. And this could be a guideline, and then they're discussing about it. And then you get a culture, why should we do this? And then you can say, okay, why is it necessary for us? Not only, I had a discussion with Indian cities some years ago, and I was there invited, and then they were totally flashed that I said, we're doing it for us, not for the national government. That they're like, what, for you? And me as a man who is working in administration was very reliable to them. And when then they see it has a benefit for themselves and for me in the city, they're saying, okay, let's discuss it. What could the benefit be? And it first begins in the mind, in the culture, reflecting it, and then in the first step, when you're matching what you're still doing and label it with the SDGs, you see it's not a big mountain. You see we're doing still a lot, but how can we do it better? As in every duty and task we have in the cities, how we can make it better. And in the networks, whether it's in Interreg, in Urberg, etc., there are a lot of examples from different cities, small, medium-sized, big cities, how they do things better. not only governance, this is a big thing, but the little things, making streets or public spaces better for gender equality, or for playing children there, how they are organizing mobility and whatever. And then if you do this, you're also getting into the thinking of resources allocation from the EU to say, okay, let's perhaps apply for some EU funds. They will give us money for making our city more sustainability. Yeah.
Yes, that's great. Yeah.
I think I could also maybe share that, I mean, there are some also online tools and these things for if you want to get started with this kind of comprehensive analysis. That one that we used in Tallinn was by the Council of European Cities and Municipalities, the CMR, which is the local branch of UCLG. It's called RFSB. Or I have to double check. I can share it in the chat. And that's a tool where you can sign up and then basically looking at whatever project strategy, what topic you want to put in the middle, and then do a self-assessment according to all the SDGs. And once you do that, you get a chart to see, where are we stronger, where it can be a little bit cumbersome to do that kind of analysis, but also very valuable if you do it together with colleagues, because you might have very different ideas. And then just the visualization again, I think Christian was talking about the importance of like seeing things, then it triggers that kind of thinking. And then you can work on paper as well. There are some examples from the Association of Finnish Municipalities. They have developed a whole workshop methodology for how to analyze things according to the 17 SDGs. And so there are many of these existing methods. But the typical one is sort of just a circle of SDGs. Put something in the middle, look around, and try to understand what the connections are, I think.
Yeah. Maybe I started with the most difficult one with the finance, but I think it's always important to have a final objective. No, so it's of course the SDG is very inspiring, and it's quite easy to align, as many of you said. The colorful, the distribution, everything makes sense. We also have the tracing and the records. But what is our own objective for governance? No, so I think that goes, of course, then far, because we can have an objective to have a more participatory governance system. So this means not only consult stakeholders, but also report to them, and the SDG will be very helpful. Or we can have a very executive strategy, and there, of course, we could say to ourselves, in 3 years, our budget will look different. So that was a little bit the point I was making, but I think it's important not only to open, but to really strategize and use SDG meaningful.
You're right. You have to align the budget with the ambition. You can start with it or you end with it, but it has to happen at some point. That is very clear. Okay, we have arrived at the end of our available time. My colleague has already asked you, the audience, in the chat to write down the topics that you would like to hear from in the future. The Policy Learning Platform, we organize our knowledge sharing activities based on the inputs and the requests and the wishes from the community. So you have been over 300 to have requested actually sustainability governance as a topic to be addressed. And this is why we have proposed this topic. So please write down the topics that you would like us to work on, and we will see if we can build them into our work plan for the next year. So this is a serious invitation. And if you have requests and specific questions, also write them down for us. We are keeping and monitoring everything that has been written there. And if you have not answered questions from today's event, we will get back to you in writing. So we're very diligent about that. And I think with that, well, so I'll still give you a couple of minutes to type away and give our panelists a last round, like with one sentence. How would you like to close this webinar? What is your main takeaway from today? Starting in the order of appearance, maybe, and rather brief. Sara, you go first.
Yeah, I think first, when we see what can be done, it's always amazing. No municipality receives any additional grant for this, maybe only the connection and the networking around it. So that needs to be very, very clear, the point made clear for national governments to take this up. And the second point is the agenda is halfway. So of course, we should not forget that many of the indicators, as good we are or as high we are performing, the indicators need the involvement of everybody. So there are cities in every region, in Africa, in Latin America, and Asia, not to forget about this, and not to do an only European way, but think also a little bit of others.
Thank you. Christian?
Yeah, I still like webinars because it's an easy way to exchange with each other and also to get in contact with institutions like Interact or UCLG. So I like this really, and you can put questions in the chat. I like webinars. And for me, the takeaway is really getting more into the podcast thing and the party.
Good one. Thank you. Stina?
Yeah, I started to think that when I listen also to the different presentations, since now we have reached halfway of the agenda and there's quite a lot of experiences, it's almost like a diamond shape that I see, that people have been like diverging, looking at many different ways to do things, tons of indicators, and there's so much there that now we start to kind of converge again and try to make it simpler. So I took that from both from Malmö and Christian and Sara's presentation, that now it's the time to kind of make things easier to understand and to get the shared narrative and continue this work, because it has never been as important as it is now, I think, considering what is happening to democracy around the world. So yeah, thank you for organizing.
Thank you, Stina. Marcus?
Well communicated. No, but I think, yes, starting. And I mean, there are a lot of cities that come a long way, and we keep doing that and help spreading the word, but just starting and keeping it simple, not staring too blind on all Excels and numbers and KPIs and stuff. Just start doing it like Stina said. Put out the 17 goals, think about what you are doing, what are you affecting on that. And the phrase culture eats structure for breakfast, you really need to take that with you, because it is like that. You need to talk about it, create a common view about it, and just spread the word. It's absolutely the most important, I think.
Thank you very much for this feedback round from all of you. Thank you for your amazing presentations, for sharing the rich experience that you have, for the energy that you put in this webinar. I think I've just had a little eye on the chat, but I see a lot of positive comments. I see a lot of hearts and thumbs ups flowing around. So I can only join in that. A warm thanks from the Policy Learning Platform to our speakers. And but also to the audience. You stayed with us till the end, and we hope to meet you again online for another series on governance or on sustainability or on both topics. And with that, I would like to conclude, also thanking my colleagues and wishing everybody a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.